ever feel like you're chasing after something, but it always seems, I don't know, just out of reach.
Like trying to catch a cloud.
Yeah. Or like running towards an oasis in the desert, only to find out, whoops, it was just a mirage.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Well, today's deep dive, that's exactly what we're tackling, this whole thing about suffering and seeking and is anything even real. And get this, we're going all the way to ancient India for this one.
No plane ticket needed. Love it.
Our guide for this trip, Shankaracharya, he's kind of a big deal in Indian philosophy, and we're diving into his text, the UpadeshasAhasrI.
It's like a user manual for reality itself, understanding who we are and what this all means through this really intriguing lens of Advaita Vedanta.
And, we've both dug into this stuff before, but I have a feeling some of our listeners might be thinking, whoa, this sounds pretty heavy.
Fascinating, right?
Totally. But that's why you're here. So what do you say, ready to jump in?
Let's dive in. What I find so fascinating about this text is how it's not just a bunch of theories. It's written like a conversation, a dialogue between a teacher and a student who's, asking all the big questions.
And speaking of big questions, this text does not mess around. It just comes right out and says, hey, guess what? There's only one reality.
One reality. The concept of Advaita Vedanta. It's a mind bender, for sure.
It really is. Because if that's true, why does it feel like we're all so separate? Just doing our own thing, living these individual lives.
It's like, how do I explain this? Imagine trying to explain the internet, like the whole thing, to someone who's never even seen a computer.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Right. Their reality is what they can touch and see around them. So this idea of this huge, invisible network, information flying around everywhere, it's almost impossible to grasp.
Mind-blowing, really.
And it's kind of the same with us. Our everyday experiences, our thoughts, what we see and hear and feel, even our sense of being a unique me, it creates this really convincing illusion that we're separate from that one underlying reality.
So we're all plugged into the matrix.
Yeah.
But instead of a computer program, it's, well, what is it? That's where Shankaracharya comes in.
Exactly. And that analogy of the world as a mirage, that's him. He uses that.
Oh, right. Okay, so picture this. You're trekking through the desert. It's scorching. You're totally parched, desperate for water.
And then, in the distance,
a shimmering oasis appears. You start running towards it, hope surging through you.
Yeah.
And poof, it vanishes. Never there. There's a trick of the light.
A mirage, an illusion. Yeah. And we've all chased a few of those in our lives, haven't we?
Ugh, tell me about it. That job that fell through, that relationship that went south. We pour so much energy into chasing these things, convinced they'll make us happy, but then
they turn out to be illusions, just like that desert mirage. And that, my friend, is exactly Shankaracharya's point.
So how do we escape the mirage? How do we stop chasing after these things that ultimately leave us empty-handed?
Well, that's where this idea of samsara comes in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but break it down for me. What does that actually mean?
So imagine being stuck on a Ferris wheel.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You go up, you experience that thrill, that excitement, but then inevitably what goes up
must come down.
Exactly. And then you're back at the bottom, waiting to go up again. It's this constant cycle, this up and down, never really getting anywhere. That's kind of like samsara. We're driven by our desires, our attachments, always seeking that next high, but it never lasts.
We're chasing that feeling of being at the top of the Ferris wheel, but it's fleeting.
Exactly. And the root cause of this whole cycle, according to Advaita Vedanta, is the illusion of a separate self. We get so caught up in thinking, this is me, this is mine, our bodies, our thoughts, our experiences, that we lose sight of something much, much bigger.
So we're like individual waves, convinced of our own little world. But really, we're all part of the same vast ocean.
Now you're catching on. That's another metaphor Shankaracharya uses. Our individual identities, our stories, our personalities, they come and go, just like waves. But the ocean of pure consciousness, that's the constant, the unchanging reality beneath it all.
Okay, I get it intellectually. But how do we actually experience this interconnectedness? How do we tap into that ocean amidst all these waves of, everyday life?
The million-dollar question. And lucky for us, Shankaracharya gives us some clues in the UpadeshasAhasrI. He suggests that by really cultivating self-knowledge, understanding our true nature as part of this one reality, we can break free from this whole cycle of seeking and suffering.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we do that? Like, seriously, if our very existence is an illusion, then who cares? What's the point of trying to achieve anything?
Those are great questions. And that's where the UpadeshasAhasrI really gets interesting. It doesn't just throw these concepts at us and say, good luck. It actually digs into the practical stuff, the how of integrating this knowledge into our lives.
And that's what I love about these deep dives, right? We're not just skimming the surface, we're going deep, exploring these teachings and seeing how they apply to, well, how we live and think and experience the world.
Absolutely. And what Shankaracharya is suggesting here is that this journey of self-discovery, it's not about becoming some emotionless robot or rejecting the world around us. It's about recognizing that our true self, that ocean of pure consciousness within us, it's beyond all the ups and downs, all the drama of life.
So we're not trying to escape the waves altogether, we're learning how to surf them.
Now you're getting it. And that's where the UpadeshasAhasrI offers some really practical insights, some practices for navigating the, let's call them the opportunities of being human.
All right, you've officially piqued my curiosity. Let's dive into those practices. What are some of the things Shankaracharya suggests we can do to actually integrate these teachings into our lives?
So there are actually a bunch of practices highlighted in the UpadeshasAhasrI, but one that Shankaracharya really emphasizes, it's inquiry.
Inquiry. Okay, so like questioning everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But not just like random questioning. It's about questioning your assumptions about how the world works.
Okay, I'm listening.
Question your beliefs about yourself. Like, what makes you happy? Where does that come from? And those beliefs you've been carrying around forever, those deep-seated ones, don't be afraid to give those a good hard look, too.
So it's like we're hitting the refresh button on our internal operating system.
Exactly. Instead of running on old, outdated programming, we get to choose. What thoughts do you want to keep? What beliefs are actually serving you? Which ones are holding you back?
I like that. So we're not just stuck with whatever programming we, I don't know, inherited or picked up along the way.
Right. It's about cultivating what they call a beginner's mind, approaching life with curiosity, like you're seeing everything for the first time.
That's awesome in theory, but let's be real. We're not living in a vacuum here. Life is busy. There's always something demanding our attention. How are we supposed to fit in this, deep inner work?
You're preaching to the choir. It's not always easy, that's for sure. But that's the cool thing about these teachings. They're portable. You don't have to go live in a cave to benefit from this stuff.
So you're saying we can, sneak in moments of mindfulness throughout the day?
Exactly. Even small moments can make a difference. Start by paying attention to your thoughts. What's going on in that head of yours?
That you don't even know.
What stories are you telling yourself? What judgments are you making? Just by noticing these patterns, you're already on the path.
It's like hitting the pause button on autopilot. Instead of just reacting to everything, we can choose how to respond.
Yes. And that space, that choice, that's where freedom comes in. Because here's the thing. You are not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're the awareness that experiences all of it. The UpadeshasAhasrI is really clear about that.
It's a powerful distinction. But actually changing my relationship to my thoughts, that feels, I don't know, kind of impossible.
Oh, it's possible, but it takes practice. It's like learning to meditate. At first, your mind is a whirlwind, thoughts flying around like
monkeys swinging from the trees.
Exactly. But with practice, we start to become more aware of those thoughts. We can observe them without getting totally swept away by them.
So we're not trying to empty our minds completely. We're just changing how we relate to those thoughts.
Yes. And as we do that, something really cool starts to happen. We notice the spaces between the thoughts, those moments of stillness, of pure awareness. And that's where we get a glimpse of that ocean of pure consciousness that Shankaracharya talks about.
Okay, I can see how meditation could be super helpful for this. But what about the rest of life, Our jobs, our relationships, all the everyday stuff. It's easy to get caught up in that and totally forget about all this deeper stuff.
That's where the UpadeshasAhasrI really shines, actually. It tells us to approach everything, that tough conversation with your partner, that frustrating day at work with this understanding, your true self. It's not touched by those ups and downs.
It's like finding this inner peace amidst all the chaos.
You got it. And it's not about being passive or emotionless. It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond to life. We can react with fear or anger, or we can choose to respond with wisdom and compassion.
So it's like we're building resilience, but from the inside out.
Yes, we're less reactive, less bothered by external stuff because we're anchored to something deeper, something truer.
It's like we can finally show up authentically, without being held back by our insecurities and fears.
Exactly. And the best part is, this isn't some new age thing. These teachings are ancient. They're like a timeless guide to living a more meaningful and fulfilling life. And the wisdom is all right there, waiting to be discovered.
That's what I find so inspiring. Right? We're tapping into this wisdom that's been passed down for centuries. But I got to ask, does it ever feel like too much? I mean, life is complicated, right? Is it even possible to actually live this way, to embody these teachings?
It's a great question, and one I ask myself all the time. Look, the UpadeshasAhasrI doesn't pretend it's easy. This is a lifelong practice, a journey of learning and growing. And yeah, there will be times when we mess up, when we forget, when we get lost in the weeds.
So what do we do then? How do we get back on track?
That, my friend, is where self-compassion comes in. We're all in this together, right? It's
Yeah.
not about perfection. It's about noticing when we've strayed and gently, kindly guiding ourselves back.
Out of judgment.
Exactly. It's about remembering that even when we feel totally lost and disconnected, that ocean of pure consciousness, it's still there, always there, waiting for us.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered inquiry, mindfulness, self-compassion. Anything else from the UpadeshasAhasrI
Yeah.
that feels really relevant, especially now with everything going on in the world?
You know, one thing that really jumps out at me is the emphasis on cultivating virtues, like kindness, compassion, patience, all that good stuff.
Okay, but how does that connect to all this? Like realizing our true nature and escaping the cycle of suffering, it seems kind of separate.
Not really. See, the Upadeshasastra suggests that by developing these virtues, we're not just being nice, we're actually purifying our minds. We're creating the right conditions to clearly see how interconnected everything really is.
So we're clearing away the mental clutter, the judgments, the negativity, the self-centeredness, and then bam, we can see more clearly, more compassionately.
Exactly. We start to see ourselves reflected in everyone else. That's when that sense of separation starts to fade, and we begin to experience the world through this lens of oneness, of interconnectedness.
That's beautiful. And it makes me think about how often we get stuck in our own little bubbles, focused on our own little dramas. We totally forget about the bigger picture.
It happens to the best of us. We're wired for that me focus. But the Upadeshasahasrī reminds us that real fulfillment, lasting happiness, it doesn't come from chasing our own desires. It comes from recognizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
So it's not about denying our individuality. It's about recognizing it's only one part of who we are.
Perfectly said. And when we live from that place of interconnectedness, it changes everything. We naturally become more compassionate, more kind, more understanding. We see the world as a reflection of ourselves, and we want to help. We want to make a difference.
We shift from a me perspective to a we perspective.
Exactly. And that shift, it has the power to transform our lives and the world around us.
So we're not just these like isolated individuals all striving for our own happiness, right? We're part of something way bigger, something connected, something interdependent. It's a lot to wrap my head around.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a lot. And honestly, the Upadeshasasri doesn't try to sugarcoat it. Shankaracharya, he knew this was, well, deep stuff. But here's the thing he keeps coming back to. It's the journey itself, this whole process of questioning and self-discovery. That's where the real magic happens.
So it's not like reaching some finish line of enlightenment. It's more about the journey, the learning as we go.
You got it. And the best part, it's a journey open to absolutely everyone. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe, what your life looks like right now. We can all do this.
I love that. Makes it feel way more accessible, like less exclusive club, more open invitation. But okay, let's say our listeners are ready to take this off the sidelines, put it into practice. What's one thing, one tangible thing they can start doing today?
You know what? Just start paying attention to those little moments of awareness that pop up throughout the day. You don't need to drop everything and run off to meditate in the mountains. Just notice your breath. Pay attention to how your body feels. Really listen when someone's talking to you without letting your own thoughts steal the show. Simple stuff, but it makes a difference.
So it's like we're building up these mindfulness muscles, right? So that when the inevitable challenges hit, we can actually handle them.
Exactly. Every time you choose to be present instead of panicking, every time you choose kindness over judgment, you're strengthening that connection to your true self, to that ocean of pure consciousness inside you.
This whole deep dive has been amazing, I gotta say. It's not just about understanding some ancient philosophy. It's about living a better life now.
And that's the power of the UpadeshasAhasrī, right? It's a guidebook, a reminder that freedom and fulfillment aren't out there somewhere. They're right here, right now, within us.
Well, I, for one, am feeling incredibly grateful for your guidance today. This text is dense, but you've given us so much to think about.
It's been my pleasure. Just remember, this journey is ongoing. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and please be kind to yourself along the way.
And listeners, we hope you're feeling inspired to start your own journey of self-discovery. Until next time, Happy diving.